All right, thank you all for joining me today for my July SCVMS webinar. It's a lot easier to use my abbreviation than saying my entire company name, which is why I do that now. For those of you who are joining live, you will get a CE certificate emailed to you. My good friend Dee Allen is moderating the chat and all the information today, so she will be the one tracking who attends. If she has any questions about who you are, she may send you a message in the messenger if she can't figure out who you are on the list. So please pay attention to that just in case. Otherwise, you'll be getting an email from me in the next few days with the CE certificate. For those of you who are not watching live and watching on my channel, thank you so much for watching it later. For those of you who don't know my channel, it's South Coast Veterinary Manage 263 at YouTube or whatever the other part of that domain is. So please like or subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to watch videos or webinars in the future. And if you have any questions in today's presentation, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Dee is moderating that, and she'll be able to ask me those so we can get some answers for you. So please feel free to do that. Also, please use your emojis and things at the bottom of the screen. And I see that Judy Rose is on here from AHA. So thank you, Judy, for joining. I did a talk for AHA last year, and we had so much fun of encouraging all the emojis, all the loves, and there's a rocket, and there's all these cool things. So if you don't know where the emojis are, they're on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and it says react, and there's a little heart. So if you want to click on it, go ahead. There we go. We got one from Judy. We got the little, I think it looks like an ice cream cone. I don't really know if that's what it is, but I want everybody to find the react button and then push something. I'm going to go ahead and do a little balloon. Push something so we shower the screen with whatever. Yay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. So I will be asking you to share some things. If you have an opinion or a thought about something that I post or I talk about, please go ahead and use that little emoji to get everybody excited since we can't see each other in person. Now, one more thing before I move on and start my presentation, because I always like to do a selfie. Every talk that I do, I got this from Dr. Dave Nichols. He used to do this when I would see him at Fetch and CVC. I do the same. So if you have the ability to go on camera for just a moment, I would love to get a picture of everybody that's in this Zoom right now and share it as my selfie when I do my social media marketing. So if you can go on camera for just a moment, I would love it. Oh, I love your little bandana thing. That's awesome. Okay, so I'll give you guys another like 10 seconds and I want to make sure I can see some faces. Yay, thank you so much. I love this. Thank you. I really appreciate. Oh, yay. If you can't, I totally understand. It's no big deal. But for those of you who can, great. Thank you. All right. I want to go ahead and just count to three. 1, 2, 3. So look forward. 1, 2, 3. Of course, I'm always talking when I take my pictures, and I don't even know if I'm looking at the right spot because I'm not looking at the camera. So hopefully it came out good. We're just going to pretend that it did. Okay. Thank you all so much. You're welcome to go off camera. You don't have to stay on. I appreciate everybody coming on for just a moment. And let me go ahead and get our presentation started. Okay. All right, Dee. So if you can mute yourself, Dee, so that it doesn't go default to you, that would be awesome. All right, so let me. Okay. All right. So today we are going to talk about an empowered team, what that looks like, and how this can benefit your practice. And I'm really, really excited to do this talk. I've only done it once before at the Long Beach Managers Group last month, and it was really fun. So unfortunately, we can't be in person. This is where we're going to do all those emojis, right? We're going to like engage that way. So engagement is encouraged. All right, so a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Tompkins-Lewis, and I am the owner of South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions. My husband and I went to Pismo Beach last year in December, and this is where this picture is from, and I love the picture. It was so much fun. That's why I keep using it in some of my presentations. Things about me that might be important, you may or may not care about, but I have been in this field for 22 years as of last May. I've worked general practice, specialty with emergency as well as emergency only. I am a certified veterinary practice manager. I'm also certified in HR for the state of California. For those of you who are from California, you know we have very complicated laws, and that's why this is the only state in the country that has a separate designation for HR law. I'm also a certified compassion fatigue professional as well. I do a lot of presentations, a lot of speaking engagements. I love engaging with team members and managers and practice owners and everybody involved in the practice. So this is something that I really, truly enjoy to do and have a great time doing. And we already talked about the other stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and move on from this slide. All right, so let's talk about what is an empowered team. And so I got this definition from Team Collective, and I'm going to read it to you because there's a few things in it that I want to kind of highlight. So I don't want to, I hate reading off the screen, but I'm going to do it right now. So, an empowered team is a group of individuals who have the authority and the confidence to make decisions and take responsibility for their work instead of relying on a manager for every step. They think critically, solve problems, and take initiative. This leads to higher productivity, better engagement, and a workplace where employees feel valued and motivated. So that middle sentence right here, I want you all to think about that. And I'm going to, in just a moment, I'm going to answer some questions for me. I want you to think about if you have a team that could think critically and solve problems and take initiative. Put like a smiley face or some kind of response if you have a problem with this in your practice where you do not have people that are taking initiative regularly and you wish they were. I'd love to see all these emojis for that because that is super common in our field where people are not trained or learn how to take initiative. So that's what this is all about. This talk is taking initiative and being able to do the things on your own without requiring the manager to assist. So, okay. Now, before we move on, sorry, my Zoom is being weird. Let's give me just a second. Okay. I only made it big. Whatever. Okay, so I want to talk about something before we move on to some of the empowerment. And the first step in that is, what are you calling your team? So I personally have been calling my employees, and granted, as a consultant, I don't have a lot of employees as an individual now. I work with a lot of companies, a lot of hospitals, but I still think of some of them as my employees because I'm there regularly and I'm kind of their default leader, right? So I don't call them staff. And I'll tell you why I don't call them staff, because it's different. It's a staff member. It's just like a person that just happens to work there. A team member is part of a team. And I looked up a great definition from his name is Ricky Braswell from the Pankey Institute. Her name is Ricky Braswell from the Pankey Institute. And she said that there's a distinct difference between team versus staff. Teams work together towards a shared goal, while staff are a group of the same group of people who happen to work under the same management. Team members work side by side, whereas staff members work in the same space. And that's really important because the way our hospitals work, we need that team dynamic, that team collaboration, that team connection and understanding. So it kind of starts with what you call them. So if you're having staff meetings still, really think about maybe having team meetings and talking about you have a team. And it's a really great way to start altering your perception or the perspective of the practice. And then it kind of helps go into some of that empowerment. You can empower your team a little bit easier than you can just empower your staff. Okay, what does an empowered team look like? So I've got some great examples of different hospitals and different functions that I've been at. And granted, you can't tell by just looking at a team if they're empowered, but these team members look like they're having a lot of fun. The bottom left one, we were doing our cat-friendly talk and they were wrapping cats in towels and it was quite fun. And then the other top right one, we were at the holiday party with Snoopy at Knott's Berry Farm. So there's a lot of fun things that team can do. Now, just because they're having fun doesn't mean they're empowered, but empowered team members tend to be happier. Okay, if you've been to the Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton, you know that they're known for their client service. And part of that client service is them knowing how to use their team members efficiently and effectively. So the Four Seasons website, they have a little blurb about their greatest asset. And the key to our success is our people. We believe that each of us needs to have a sense of dignity, pride, and satisfaction in what we do. Because satisfying our guests depends on the united efforts of many, we are the most effective when we work together cooperatively, respecting each other's contribution and importance. So you may think, well, how does that make them empowered? Well, I have a story. So earlier this year at Western, one of the vendors was hosting one of their like cocktail hour things, and they had it at the Ritz-Carlton, or I'm sorry, at the Four Seasons at their bar area. And there was quite a few of us there, and they had like free drinks and free appetizers for 2 hours, right? From like 7 to 9 or something. And at about 10 to 9, they came around and did like a last call for drinks. And one of the managers that I was with, she had gone to the bathroom during that time. And so she came back after they were done with last call and she didn't realize it. So she went up to the bar and went to get a new drink and then found out that last call was kind of over or that the free drink hour was over. Now, she was kind of disappointed, especially because while she was gone, they had accidentally thrown away the rest of her drink. There was still a little bit left, not a lot, but a little bit. So now she didn't have the rest of her drink and she had to pay for a new one, whereas before we were getting them for free. Well, she kind of expressed disappointment in her facial expression, but she didn't say anything out loud. The bartender made the drink that she requested and did not charge her for it and said, no, it's fine. And if you think about that, she could have been upset because they had thrown away her previous drink, right? She could have been upset because she'd missed the last call. She could have been, had a right to make a little bit of a complaint or irritation, but she didn't have to do anything because that bartender took initiative and just gave her the drink for free. Now, I completely understand that working as a server or bartender, there's leeways there that you may not have in a veterinary practice. There may be things that you can do differently, but why couldn't we empower our team members to make certain decisions without having to get permission? Could they give away a free nail trim because of a situation? Absolutely. Should they have to go through us to make those decisions? No. So that's where I point this out, is that she didn't have to say anything and she got that free drink, and it made her happy. She had a great rest of her evening, and I use this as my example because it was such a great thing to do. So now, what about the Ritz-Carlton? Some of you may know that the Ritz-Carlton has a $2,000 rule. It's great customer service. Their $2,000 rule is all employees, every single employee that works there is authorized to spend up to $2,000 to solve a guest's problem without having to go through management. Now, $2,000 is a lot of money, and I obviously don't expect a hospital to have that high of like a budget that they could say you can give away for free. But what if you had a $50 that you could give away for free? What if you had certain services that you could give away, like I mentioned earlier, like having a free nail trim or something that you could give away that helps those clients and prevents them from getting upset? If the receptionist can see a client's got like upset face or irritation face, instead of having to get permission to do something, maybe they can offer it ahead of time. And both Four Seasons and Ritz-Carlton are known for their exceptional customer service. So wouldn't you want to be part of that? Okay, so now we're going to go to Mentimeter. So for those of you, if your phones, if you're on your phone, I'm so sorry, Nikki, I don't know if you'll be able to do this as easily, but we're going to go menti.com, which is, and I have to reshare my screen. Hang on, I got to do new share to get to the other part. And after this, I will go to the chat and see if there's any questions. I see stuff popping up. So Dee, you can tell me in just a moment if there is. Okay, so on your screen right now should be a question that says, what questions are team members asking you regularly? Dee, can you let me know if you can see that on your screen?
Yes, I can see.
Perfect. Okay,
Good.
so go to menti.com, type in the code 11084936, and answer this question for me. What questions are team members asking you regularly that interrupts your day? So these are like those over and over questions that you're getting bothered by. And we're going to talk about whether or not some of those things are what you can empower them to handle without you having to be involved. So code is 11084936. If you're having any problems, you can unmute and just say that you're having problems so we can try to help you. They forgot to clock in. That one is hard because that one's a software thing, and I don't know if you can have the same empowerment for them to make a decision. There can be repercussions for not doing that. Forgot to clock back for lunch. Oh man, these are ones that I have a hard, the empowerment's not here with these two. Forgot to clock back in from lunch. Do we have any? Ooh, that's a good one. Do we have any in stock, right? Whatever the item is. Mine used to be the computer's having an issue. That was one that I used to get a lot. Can we start this appointment early? Good one. Getting a lot of what someone else is doing wrong or what they are not doing. Oh, those complaints. So this one, I will just kind of give a quick little interlude. So one of the things that I did at my first practice, I had it very successful there. I had a harder time getting to be successful at my next practices because the schedule hours were different. But my first practice, I created office hours. So I said from 1 or 2 to 3 p.m. every day that I worked was office hours, kind of like a professor. when you have an office hours that you go in to talk to them. You don't always talk to them right after class, but you go in a different time. And that was the time where they could come talk to me about any concerns that they had. So that getting a lot of what someone else is doing wrong thing, that would be part of my office hours so that I could control when they were going to come talk to me. And so I could make sure I wasn't working on something important like payroll or something lengthy, so I could interrupt myself really easily. So that one you could try scheduling office hours for yourself to figure out if it works. Like I said, it worked well at my first practice. My other two hospitals being specialty and emergency, it was a little bit harder for me. Okay, estimates for client. Can this past due client get this or that? Do we charge an emergency? Can we see this client at the end of the day? Can we squeeze in this client? Someone else isn't doing something correctly. Okay, that's a good office hour one. Removing double charges. Authorization to book an appointment that they may already know the parameter of said appointment. All right, those are great questions. Let's see if we've got any more. So some of these, you can empower them to have the answers, right? And we're going to talk about how to do that in just a little bit. Activating employee discounts and PIMs. So there is a couple of things on here, like removing double charges and activating employee discounts. That might be something that only certain people are allowed to do. Now, I would say activating employee discounts is something that doesn't have to only go through the manager. If you have other leaders on your team, you could assign that for them to do, give them full training on how to do it, double check their work a little bit till you know that it's accurately being done. But that one you could assign to someone else. And even the same with the removing double charges. You could have a few other people on the team who are leaders that can be authorized to review those things. And so that isn't always the one, or you're not always the one dealing with it. And when you do that, make sure that you tell them, hey, because now you're looking at this and I'm not, you want to make sure that they update you. If you've got someone regularly making mistakes, regularly doing double charges or something, there may be also like some other conversations that need to have as a result of that. Okay, fix the wrong payment type. Again, that may be another one that certain leaders can be able to fix, and helping with end of day. Now, helping with end of day, you're the manager. I'm not saying never to help. I don't believe in that. But I also believe in the setting boundaries for what they are doing and what you are doing. And that depends on your role at the practice, right? So I started setting boundaries and setting expectations and training my team and giving them parameters to do things so that I wasn't constantly being pulled. I made those decisions and I was able to like kind of embrace that a little bit. So set my own boundaries so I wasn't there super late because I was helping them all the time. So that's a boundary that you can set within yourself and making sure everybody has the proper training so that they're doing end of day correctly without your assistance. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the part of the presentation. Oh, wait, one more. Can we match Costco Chewy medication? Yes. So that's a great one too, because that depends on the answer for your hospital, right? If you guys do those things, then the answer is yes. So you give them the parameters of what that looks like. If you don't do those things, then the answer is easily no. And then you stand behind that for every single client. Now we're going to talk in a moment about creating SOPs, and that's what goes into that, how to make that decision. Okay, let's go back and reshare our screen. Okay, I'm going to hit admit since I'm probably, there we go. Okay, so why don't veterinary hospitals empower their teams? We don't have the time to teach them how, right? So we don't have the time to teach someone how to make the decision that you would want them to make. And that's why we don't do it a lot, honestly. We just don't have the time. We really could have the time if we made the effort, but we get so stuck in doing the day-to-day that we don't do the things that help us grow. Sometimes we don't know how. We don't know either how or what to teach them to empower. That's why I asked you guys the things that are regularly you're being interrupted by, to see if those are the things that you can teach them how to handle on their own so that you're not always handling it. Or at the very least, teaching other leaders on your team how to handle that too. So that way you don't have to handle every single problem. And sometimes I was this manager, so I can tell you this from personal experience. I thought I had to do everything myself. I thought it made me look better if I did everything myself. It made me look like I was really part of the team if I was constantly working, helping them or whatever. What I learned was it was not efficient for me and it didn't teach them anything. So I kept constantly having to do things because I never taught them how to do it on their own. So it was a lesson that I needed to learn. Okay. So what are some benefits of empowering? So this is by Jennifer Harity. She has talked about improved accountability, quicker turnarounds, being able to provide better customer service, like my example from the Four Seasons. That bartender didn't have to ask anybody. She just did it. So it was great customer service. It was efficient, quicker turnaround. It didn't take anything but whatever, 30 seconds it took her to make the drink. So it's really easy. Increased productivity. They're a lot faster. Higher rates of job satisfaction, better collaboration, more leadership potential. You can find leaders within your team when you start empowering them to do more. And then it reduces costs because they're not constantly, spending all the time, right? Okay. So let's talk about improved accountability. So it helps them get a greater sense of responsibility and the control over things when they're part of it. And they might care about the outcome a little bit more when they're part of it too. And this can result in better work overall. And there are some people on your team. I actually had this question in the Long Beach meeting. There was a question about what if we have a person that you're trying to empower, but they don't want to. There are going to be people that don't want to be empowered and don't care and want to just do the base minimum. That's okay. So not everybody is meant for this, but a lot of your team is. So we want to focus on the team members who are meant for this. And I'll just pause really quick here, Dee. Are there any questions, Dee, that I should know about or that you'd like to ask?
Sorry. Nikki had just made a comment. She says she's been able to give some PIM type tasks to other experienced team members, which has created more empowerment for those individuals.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. And in another Mentimeter question towards the end, I'm going to ask you some of the tasks that you've delegated. So I would love for you to share that, the things that you've done successfully. I can say that before I got into the veterinary field, I worked in collections and finance, and I had a team member who was kind of flaky, and I was a lead of that team. And I don't even remember why, but I gave her a project to do, and she just took it and just ran with it and did really well. And it changed her. It changed her as a person. She wasn't as flaky. She wanted to come to work every day because she had purpose. She was working on this project, and I worked for Sears Credit. So at some point, she worked on the project for about 6 months. And I don't remember what it was, but she ended up getting to go to the Sears Tower in Chicago, and we lived in Idaho. So she got to go to Chicago because I put her on this project, and I was like, dang it, I wish I could have gone to Chicago. But it was amazing. I gave her something, she thrived, and it made her a better employee and more accountable to her work because of that. So highly, highly suggest it. Better customer service and quicker turnaround. We've kind of talked about that. You can take ownership, make decisions without involving the manager, and it streamlines things with the clients better. You don't have to waste all that time getting approvals. Okay, so this is really something, it's a time saver for everybody. You just have to teach them how to make those decisions. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Increase productivity by empowering team members, encouraging them to take greater control of their work. Their work tends to be better for those who like it. Again, there's going to be some who don't care, but more of your team does care. So you want to help them be more empowered to handle things better. And then they're more invested in the outcome of something if they've been part of it. I had a project I wanted to do. We had TV screens in my first practice in the rooms, and I wanted to do like promotional material for it. Literally 3 years. I tried to put something together, but I never had time. I assigned it to two of my technicians. They had an excellent, amazing PowerPoint for marketing within 30 days. And it was amazing. And we can put it on the screens and project it for the clients. And it was amazing. And it was all about the services we offered at the practice. So I literally 3 years, they did it in less than 30 days. So, and they had a great time and they felt so empowered by doing it. It was who they identified with, that they were proud of it. So higher rates of job satisfaction, that kind of led with what I just talked about. Employees who feel more control over their work, they're more satisfied. They're more likely to want to come back to work every day. They're more likely to have a better day. They get along well with others when they're having a good day, right? You kind of see where I'm going with this. And it's cheaper for you when you don't have to hire people to replace them. It's like 4 times the cost of an employee's salary is what it costs to replace them. When you talk about your ad bills, your recruiting time, your interview time, all that is like 4 times. If you keep the person, it costs you 4 times more if you lose them. So empowering them to do more is an excellent way to save your money, right? Better collaboration. They're more empowered to collaborate with one another, especially if they do projects together. That encourages teamwork and team dynamic, and they're more likely to be able to share ideas with each other. Empowered team also may be able to share ideas with you too, and they can say, hey, I have a really good idea for this. What do you think? Now, that would be something, as I mentioned earlier, I talked about office hours. That would be a time to set aside when they want to talk to you. So if you're like me, if I'm in the middle of doing a bunch of stuff, I tend to be irritable if people keep dropping stuff on my lap, right? I am that manager. I try not to be very hard, but by managing when they come to me and setting an appointment with them, I can manage that response much, much better. So if someone says, hey, I've got an idea, and I'm in the mindset, okay, let's sit down and talk about it, a lot of times their ideas are great. So encourage that collaboration. And if you need it, like I do, set aside the time to talk about it, because it will definitely be better than if it's like on the fly. On the fly stuff, it works for some, but it doesn't really work overall. So definitely set aside that time. What about more leadership potential? You can grow people in your team when you know what they're capable of. So you're going to see people sort of step up as you start to empower them to do more. And you can give them a little bit more control over their work. You're going to see that people start to shine who may be leaders, who may be able to make those decisions for you and help you with that. And this could lead to promotions for them in the future. Now, I will say one thing. Do not just give someone a free rein to do whatever or to take charge of something without checking in with them, because some people will take advantage and I'll say like run amok and do think they can do everything on their own and think they can make all these decisions and stuff. So you need to have a balance into what you know you want them to be able to do and what they're actually doing. So kind of have a balance with that. We're going to talk a little bit about delegation. So there's more details on how to do that. But I want to give everyone a warning because I have seen hospitals where they let a team member give them all this power and it does not go well. So that's part of this, is making sure you're aware of what the possibilities to go negative are. Okay, reduce costs. We've already talked about being more efficient, decrease money spent on wages. They can solve problems faster, saves you money, lower turnover. So that one's pretty easy. And then they also make less mistakes. Well-trained, empowered team members will make less mistakes than the ones who are not. So that's something that's costly too, because mistakes have a cost to them. I don't have a good statistic on what that actually is. In fact, I should look that up because I'd be interested to know what mistakes actually cost us. All right. So let's talk about what this is practically in your hospital, right? So training and empowering your team, that first step is that SOP. So if you went back to our first slide for the Mentimeter, when you guys gave me some great information on things that like the discounts or the schedule, squeezing an appointment. So have protocols in writing, create an SOP to do in these situations. And so this is something that I challenge you to go back to your hospital and say, okay, maybe talk to the other members of your leadership team or your practice owner, or maybe even your team members, and find out what are questions that they get regularly that you think they might be able to handle. And so sit down and make an SOP for it. Write up a plan for when can you give an additional discount? When can you, how does the scheduling work? Like what, because this is a challenge that I see a lot of the scheduling. This is always a cluster. So many hospitals I've consulted with have this thing where every time they want to schedule an appointment, if it's just not a regular annual exam or something, they have to ask the doctor. They have to ask the doctor. They have to ask the manager, how do we fit this in? How do we put this? And it's such a waste of time. It's a time suck. So realistically is create your schedule, put blocks on there for sick only, put blocks on there for emergencies, put blocks on there for new clients, put a block for an annual exam with 5 cats, whatever that looks like. Put a block that controls your flow of your schedule and teach your team members how to make those decisions appropriately. What are the things they need to do? So if they're looking at an appointment to schedule, they need to know X, Y, and Z, right? Are they asking about the patient's health? Are they asking all those questions? So have those things in writing so that they can make that decision without involving you. In the beginning of you doing this, it's going to be hard and they're going to make a lot of mistakes. And that's okay, because over time, they will be able to handle it on their own and it'll be amazing. Now, some things are not meant for this. I'm not going to say that you can empower them to make every single decision. That's not this. But there are a lot of things I've seen, I guarantee you they could be empowered to make those decisions on their own and they wouldn't need your help. You can always have, though, when they make a decision about something, if they like, especially if they give a discount or something away, or that they have to notify you so that you can be part of it, that's totally fine. But remember, do not criticize them because they made a decision differently than you would have wanted to. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Okay, instead of taking care of every problem they bring you, teach them how to take care of some of them on their own. Talk to them about what you would do in that situation if they made a different decision than you would have wanted them to. If somebody makes an error that needs to be fixed, have them be part of the fixing. I guarantee you, I want you guys to put some smiley faces or whatever in the chat that tells me that you have had to deal with this, where you're always fixing all the problems. If you're always fixing all the problems, they're going to keep making their mistakes because they're never being accountable to it. My second practice was specialty, and we shared, like, we called it a campus. I don't know if you've ever been to, VSS. They've all changed now, so I don't know. If you're into AVIM back in the day, there's a campus of other hospitals in the area. And so neurology, we were internal medicine. Neurology was one of the other hospitals we would send our patients to. So what we would do is we would send our patient over there, and then the neurology office would bill us for that. And what we would do for our clients is we collected the high end of their treatment plan. So they prepaid for everything. And then after their visit, one of my technician supervisors would audit the charges to determine whether or not we did something appropriately. Well, I got a bill for a $2,500 CT, and I went and looked at the patient chart to confirm that they had paid for it. And we had actually refunded them the $2,500. So I went to my technician supervisor and I asked her about what happened. And she had thought that we didn't do the CT because there was discussion that we weren't going to. So she had refunded it thinking that we didn't do it when we actually had. This was $2,500. That's a huge bill, right? So I asked her, I'm like, are you willing to call this client and ask her for the money? And she said yes. So I talked to her about how she would talk to the client. I sat next to her. I said, okay, I want you to say these things we've talked about. If she gets upset or is mad, I'll take the call from you. I sat next to her and I listened to the whole thing. She called that client, and that client was like, oh, I wondered why I got such a large refund. Let me go grab my purse. I know that that doesn't always work that way. People are not always as cooperative of that. But I guarantee you that technician supervisor never made that mistake in a chart audit again. She never did something incorrectly again because she was part of the fixing process. And she learned a skill of talking to a client in a very difficult situation, with a difficult question that she had to ask. So it helped grow her skill set as well. So those are the things that you should do. If they make a mistake, have them be part of fixing it instead of you just handling it. That isn't always going to work. I had another situation where we body shaved we had two midnights at the hospital. One was for boarding, one was for grooming. We accidentally body shaved the wrong one. That tech assistant came to me sobbing and crying. She was hysterical. So I couldn't have her be part of that because she was so upset. And thankfully, that client was actually pretty cool too. So it was kind of funny. But sometimes they'll be able to be part of it. Sometimes they can't be. If they can't make the call or do the handling, you should still have them sit next to you when you do, because they need to hear what you say and how you say it. They need to be part of that. Do not let them off the hook and just have them run away. Well, not run away, but go back and do other things. Have them be part of the fixing, whether you do it or they do it, have them be part of it with you. And
Melissa, real quick, can I
yes.
add, Nikki had interjected something right before you even talked about
Oh,
it.
sorry. Go.
But yeah, so this is great. And I cannot agree more. She said, I've learned that some team members make less mistakes when they are the ones who have to work to fix the mistakes.
Yep.
It's easier if I just fix it for them, but if I let them struggle a little to fix it themselves, they realize how much extra work it is, and it helps them be more aware to not make the mistake in the first place in the future.
Absolutely. So true. That is 100% correct. There's that phrase that if you teach a person to fish, if you give them a fish, they eat for one day. If you teach them to fish, they eat for life, assuming they like fish. But that's a great statement to that, because that's the thing. If you teach them how to handle the situations and deal with those situations, then those situations become less of your problems. Sometimes those mistakes don't even happen because they understand the dynamics of that. It's a very, very easy thing to do. It's just hard for us because sometimes it's just faster. Takes me 30 seconds to do something, it's going to take me 3 minutes to train you. However, how many 30 seconds am I spending? Am I constantly fixing this problem? So if I teach everybody over 3 minutes and I don't have to spend any time in the future, it saves you time in the long run. Okay, so let's talk about delegation. And I think the term delegation sometimes is freaky for people because they think, oh, I can't delegate payroll. Well, of course, you're not going to delegate payroll to somebody else, but there are a lot of other things that aren't necessarily exactly delegation, but empowerment. So we'll kind of think of it this way, but it's kind of the same concept. So Lindsay Swinton, I also at the end of this presentation, I have a lot of links to things you guys can access. I'll send everybody that's attending the actual PowerPoint so you can have those links pretty easily. But Lindsay Swinton has some great ideas on delegation. I would also say this ties with empowerment. No manager or leader is an island. You can't do everything on your own. And it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you ask people to help you. It's okay if you get assigned people to do certain things. You are 100% not required to be the only person making decisions. You're not an island. Share the responsibility. Delegation, empowerment, delegate, don't abdicate. So this is kind of an important thing. As you empower people, if something goes wrong, it is ultimately on your shoulders. You can't say, oh, I gave it to Steve and he did it wrong. It's his fault. No, you're still part of that, unfortunately. So don't be deterred by this, though. It just means you have to make sure that when you delegate or empower someone to do something, it's the right thing to delegate or to empower them to handle, right? Make sure it's right for their skill set, they're the right person, that is right within whatever their job scope is, and that they are going to be able to handle it And if they don't, because you picked the wrong person, that is kind of on you, right? So there it does go into thought process of this. So even now, when you guys get back to your desks, or if you're already at your desk or whatever, I want you to think about who are the people that you can empower to do more things. And then make your list of all the stuff that you have constantly questions about and see who within that might be able to help you with those things. The other part of delegation or empowerment is making sure that anything you're assigning to others or having them handle, that you can make it crystal clear, that they're crystal clear tasks that you can have them, delegate out. Don't delegate out like, oh, hey, can you just call all the groomers? Well, that's vague, right? The groomers for today, the groomers for last week. Are you going to run like, what are we doing with that? So you want to make sure that's very specific, that you have the whole SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I like the word realistic, but they use relevant in there's this image. Make sure that it's clear to them, that they understand that you have time for questions, that everybody on the same page, what the expectation is, what the expectation of the outcome is, all of those things. And you need to make sure you give them the right tools. So if you, let's just say, we'll go through this and get in. Okay, tools to the job. The most important tool is the person you select. We talked about that just a minute ago. Make sure that you've assigned the right person. If you have someone take on a project like inventory, that's kind of a detailed thing, right? You need a detail-oriented person to try to do inventory. If you assign someone who's not detail-oriented, it's not necessarily going to go well. So you need to make sure that first person is assigned appropriately to that project, because otherwise, we know. You also need to make sure that you give them the tools to do the work. So if I assign someone to start doing the employee schedule, so maybe one of my supervisors or leads wants to do it, so I assign them to do it. I have to make sure that I've given them all the permissions in the time clock or the scheduling software or whatever like they need. Because if I say, okay, go ahead and start doing the schedule or do the things, but then they can't do it with their sign in authorizations or whatever. So making sure that you give them all the things they need at the beginning, so that you don't find out 2 weeks later they couldn't do it because they didn't have the right tools. Now, they should tell you if they can't do it though, right? So there has to be open line of communication. That's where this kind of also comes into, it's important is to know is who are the people that need the coaching from you? Who are the people who don't? I have a really good friend that she is someone that you just give her the plan, just like my husband would say, a map and a mission. You just give her the information, tell her what you want done and when you want it done by, and you can just walk away. She'll handle it. She'll give it to you early and she'll be done. She doesn't need you to micromanage. She doesn't need you to breathe over her shoulder. In fact, if you do, it's going to be counterproductive to what she's trying to accomplish. But there are people who do need a little bit of, I don't want to say hand holding, but they need more guidance and more direction, and they need more check-ins. And sometimes at the beginning of you assigning and empowering people, you don't know exactly what they need. So there's kind of a little bit of figuring out. So if you're not sure, tell them, hey, today's Monday. I'm going to check in with you on Wednesday and see where you're at. You give them that heads up. So when you check in with them on Wednesday, it's not awkward. They already know you're going to do that. If they're ahead of the game, then you know you probably don't have to continue a lot of those check-ins. If they're behind and they're like, I haven't had time to do any of it, then maybe you need to rethink things. Also, part of the tool is time. Did you give them time to work on the schedule, or did you give them time to do the inventory? If you expected them to find time within their day of working as an assistant or working in the front, that's not going to work. They're going to not choose, but they're going to take care of the duties that they already were doing first before the second duty that you just added. You need to give them time in a lot of things, and that's where we usually go wrong. We don't give them that time. So time is a tool, just like the mechanics and the equipment and all the other things. So make sure you give them that time to do it. And deadlines, when does it need to be done? Dee,
Can I interject
yeah,
real quick?
absolutely.
We do have a question before this, but we can come back to that one. But Carlin had mentioned, she said or I'm not sure. Is Carlin a guy or I'm not sorry. Anyway, recently got fired from planning the birthday stuff because I was so busy with other things that I would rush to get things done. I have an amazing receptionist that loves these things, and she's been doing such a great job with it. And now I'm not stressed about it. I just authorized the payments. That's amazing. Love it.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
think it's funny you got fired from the birthday things. I have, I absolutely can understand those experiences, and it's amazing that you found the right person to do it. So absolutely, delegating to the right person is essential. Sometimes you'll delegate to the wrong person, but do not give up. Just because you delegate it wrong one time does not mean you'll get it wrong in the future. So I love this other thing. So this thing, a delegation, I say tomato, you say tomato. I didn't know this, but there are 10,000 varieties of tomatoes out there. So I tried to find pictures of like different ones. So imagine that you're all on the same page. That's kind of what this is about, making sure that you understand. If you're going to a barbecue and you're told to bring tomatoes, and you just bring cherry tomatoes like on the ones on the right here, and then they're like, oh, we need tomatoes for the burgers. That's not going to work, right? Because you needed that beefsteak tomato in order for that to fit on the burger. So it's the same with anything that you're asking them to do. If you're delegating or giving them a project or having something that they have to handle, make sure that your interpretation of that is the same as them. And so you kind of have to make sure you've explained it clearly, give them time to ask you whatever questions, even give them time to even show you things as they go along. Hey, is this what you were thinking? Because sometimes it's not going to be what you were thinking, and you might not have explained it as clearly or how they understood it. So you need to make sure that you're on the same page and don't discourage them. My front office manager and I, this is several years ago, had a project that my practice owner asked us to do, and it was with Excel. And she didn't really explain how she wanted it to look in the end. So we gave her all the raw data. We were collecting a lot of data for something. We gave her all the raw data as opposed to a summary of the final results. All she wanted was a summary. She didn't care about the raw data. Well, unfortunately, on her end, she didn't politely say, "Oh, I really just wanted the summary. Can you take it and do it again?" Or, just give me the summary of the things. She kind of said it in a way that was snarky. So, oh, it doesn't know how I wanted it. It doesn't look at all like what I wanted. So, do you think my front office manager wanted to do a project again? No, because it wasn't encouraged. It was discouraged. So it's the way we say things to people in the end. If it doesn't look like exactly what you wanted, that's okay. Sometimes you can still work with what they gave you, or you can say, hey, I was picturing something differently. Let's try doing it this way and see, or how, ask them maybe more questions about it. Do not discourage them though, because it will discourage them completely from wanting to do things. And I can be honest and say, I've been a victim of that myself, where then I get stubborn. I'm like, all right, well, if you don't like it, then I'm never doing things again. Is that emotionally intelligent? No, but we're human. So sometimes we do those things. So it's important for us to encourage, not discourage our team members. Okay, giving them enough rope. We've kind of talked about that a little bit when I said, making sure you understand what that person needs from you. Give them enough rope to handle it. Rein them in if you need to. Some of them need a lot of rope. Some of them don't need any rope. It just depends on the person. So how much freedom do you need? A lot of times it goes into setting your deadlines and check-ins. Those are really good if it's a big project. If it's just something small, if you're basically saying this is the decision you need to do to give a client a discount, that's not something that needs regular check-ins, right? Or even a time frame. You do want them to tell you though, hey, I gave this client a 15% discount because of the parameters that said we could. Have them tell you, then you're at least aware, right? Um, and sometimes you have to talk to them and find out what they need. Like how much time do you really need? When do you want me to check in again? Kind of giving them a little bit of that power. So it's not always you micromanaging them, because I'll be honest, a lot of us have a tendency to micromanage, whether we mean to or not. We hover, we stand over people, we kind of and it can be a little intimidating or a little discouraging for our team. So make sure that we're thinking about that when we are giving them this empowerment. Okay. So we also too, you want to make sure you talk to the team about what's working. Is it working that they're making these decisions, or that they're taking on this project, or is it not working? You need to do those check-ins as well. The thing with empowerment, honestly, and delegation, it's a lot of communication. For some people, that's like a nightmare. They're like, I don't want to have to talk to my team about all these things. But in the long term, as they get more routine, as they get better about doing this, and as they can make decisions and you can see how good they're making them and they can see that they're making them correctly or what you would like, it will save you time. But at the beginning, it will not save you time. It'll be a lot more work. But after several months, it's easier and it gets better and your team appreciates you. Okay. And now, all right. So I want to discuss, we're going to go into Mentimeter again. Before I do that, do we have any other questions, Dee?
Yes, ma'am. You have, Sandra had mentioned, back to referring the staff as a team, we call the front staff and the techs back staff. What would you suggest instead?
Front team and treatment team. I hate the word back. So for whatever reason, front doesn't bother me, and I don't think it bothers anybody. But the term the back is that concept of I'm going to take my pet to the back and bad things happen back there, right? So changing the term to treatment, pets get treated. Treatment's a good thing, right? It helps them. It saves them. It does good. Well, I shouldn't say good things in the sense sometimes that if they're injured or something, it could be painful, but the treatment is the important piece. So say treatment team, the treatment team members, this happens in treatment. The front is not really a scary place for any client or for any pet. I mean, it's scary for any pet coming into the building that doesn't want to come see us, but it doesn't have the same negative connotation with it. So I would say my front office team and my treatment team. You could say my reception team, my CSR team, depending on what you call them. You could say my technician team or my assistant team, depending on what you call them as well. That's what I would recommend. So let's go into Mentimeter again. It's the same screen. So if you still have it up, I've now gone to the next slide. So what duties have you delegated successfully? As Nikki mentioned, she has delegated some things that were successful for her. So I don't know if Nikki can sign in because she was on her phone, I think, but love it. Thank you. So everyone has to review and approve their own timesheets. That is great. That has eliminated the back and forth and delay in processing payroll. That's a great answer too for the people that had mentioned not clocking in on appropriately. That is an extra step for them, but they have to do it so they know how much work it is. So absolutely love that, having to review and approve their own timesheets. And hopefully you give them a deadline of when they need to do that. Okay, so what else? Oh, here, client de-escalation. Yes. Some people are really good at that. And I'm kind of a middle. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not really good. I'm not really bad. So there's some people that are amazing. I like to listen to them de-escalate clients because it's not an intuitive skill. And they can actually teach your other team members how to be better at that as well. Social media, that's another great one that a lot of people have delegated. It's an amazing um, ordering. Yep. Inventory ordering. That was one that I mentioned. If you have the right person doing it, they might be able to do it better than you. I did inventory as my first big project when I became a manager, and I did it for a long time. And when I finally gave it to one of my technicians, it was actually, she did it better than me because that was her only big project. So she could get it done and focus on it. Whereas I was constantly like struggling and behind because I had so much to do and she didn't. So I wish I would have given it to her before, like several years before I left the practice, because it would have made my life a little bit easier. But again, I was in that time thinking I had to do everything and not ready to delegate. Equipment maintenance, that's another great one. It doesn't need to be the manager, but should they be telling you, hey, this is broken? Should they be communicating? Should there be a log or something that they can find things? Somebody, I think, put it about ordering if things were on back order, the products. I highly recommend that you have a log of things that are on back order, where something is. A lot of times people will ask instead of looking themselves. So if someone comes to you and says, hey, I can't find this, do you know if we have any? Ask them where they have looked before you answer that question and make them do a little bit more before you just tell them, oh, no, it's not back order. If you have a back order list, the first thing you can tell them is, hey, did you check our back order list? And then when they say no, then say, okay, we'll go check the back order list and come back to me. Even though you might already know the answer, don't answer it because they're going to keep asking you those simple questions if you keep answering them really fast. Care club cancellations, wellness plans, fixing payments and PIMs, great. Creating and receiving POs, purchase orders. Sometimes client issues, I coach them how to try it themselves. They can transfer to me if needed. Excellent. These are all great examples of how you can empower them to handle things. And sometimes you may give them an increase, a pay increase, because if it's, like taking on the inventory or the social media maintenance, and if it's something that happens frequently, I would consider giving them a pay increase for that. That doesn't mean that every single responsibility gets a pay increase, like de-escalating, clients doesn't necessarily get a pay increase, but sometimes it gets a gift card. Or again, I'm not giving you this advice for the tax purposes, so you've got to do whatever you want with your tax stuff. I'm not going to say anything, but give them something nice or complimentary. That sometimes is enough. Certain initiatives, I assigned a champion of that initiative. I love it. I love the champion concepts because it's such a positive, like reinforcement of this person is a champion with this. You could even go further too and even have like fun little badges or buttons or even give them like a little crown or something like that. That could be funny, whatever that looks like for you. I love those things. These are all great examples of things that you can empower them to handle, especially the client de-escalation. That one's huge because that is something that ends up on the manager's desk every time. And the other thing kind of on the front of that is not just the de-escalation, but the prevention of them getting upset. So if they know they can give away a free service and they can sense that the client's starting to get a little bit agitated, they can say the things to help prevent them from getting upset. Now that's a different talk than this one, but there are things that we can do a little bit differently to make things a little easier for our clients. Okay, so I'm not sure if there's any more coming in. I'll wait just another 10 seconds and then I'll go back. Okay, so now my next question is also in Mentimeter, so I'm just going to go ahead and stay in here so I don't have to keep changing screens. Oops, hang on, sorry. Okay, so list at least one task that you currently do that you could allow team members to do. For those of you who are not delegating as much as you wish you could or empowering them to do, I want you to think about something that you currently do that you could have them do. And I want you to put it on there so that you're kind of holding yourself accountable to this. Like if you can let them handle the upset clients, or you can give them, maybe they're the person that puts together the SOPs for the different protocols that you have, you know? I love the example that if you have an SOP of how to fix the washing machine, well, not how to fix, but what to do if the washing machine breaks on the side of the or breaks, what to do if the washing machine breaks on the side of the washing machine, and it starts with call the repair person. You know, they can start doing that so they don't come to you with a basket of poopy laundry and dump it on your desk, you know? So write an SOP for that, as I mentioned earlier. Those SOPs will be key. Maybe that's something you could have someone else delegate. What do you do in the event of an emergency situation? What do you do if the power goes out? What do you do if the phones go out? You know, what do you do? Like there's a lot of things that we end up having to handle because we're not prepared or we didn't tell our team how to handle it. Yes, one task you can currently, cures reporting is an excellent example of something that does not need the manager to do. You can have someone on your team that's very detailed, knows how to track it, can learn how to upload it, and be part of that. It's a great example. I'm in the middle of fine tuning our new PIMs, and I'm sure I can pass on someone else, but I'm afraid it's not going to get done correctly. That's a hard fear, right? We have that like, oh man, they might not do it right. So you have to sit down with them, have them start to do it, like do a full training with them, right? Whatever that is, and fully train them on what you want it to look like and how you want it to look. Have them do it a little bit, right? And then check in with them. Say, okay, I want you to do one or whatever it is. Have them do a few and then check in and see how it was done. The important thing is those check-ins. If we let them go on for months without double checking to make sure they've done it correctly, yeah, that's not going to necessarily go as well. There's some people that will do it great, but there are other people that might not. So you need that check-in to make sure. Then you can feel comfortable that, wow, they did it exactly right, you know, and sitting down and training with them and making sure they ask you questions and you tell them information. So it's a good collaboration. And you have to sometimes let go of that fear, like, oh, nobody can do it as good as me. Well, that's probably not actually not true, but you just have to find the right person that can do it as good as you. We had a data merge from a closed hospital. I could delegate merging duplicate accounts, but no one really has time for that eventually. So that's the thing. You have to set aside the time for them. You have to say, hey, Jesse is going to be working on this project. So from 10 to 11, don't talk to her. Leave her alone. Let her sit in the back of the room or whatever. You're going to have to make that conscious effort to make sure that they have time to do the things that you've delegated, because it's not like you really have more time. You just have time that's different. Your time is different because you're not in an appointment. You're not doing the treatment. You're not doing those things necessarily. So as a manager, your time is more flexible, but you still have 1,000 projects and they don't. So realistically, it's something that if you just assign the say, hey, from 10 to 11, don't bother them. That's the way to get those things done. You have to schedule it kind of like scheduling an appointment, right? Okay. So I'll wait to see if there's anything else. I love these examples though. These are really good. All right. So we'll go back to.
You want another question or do you want
Absolutely, go for it.
Nikki actually, she had a question or a comment real quick. And she just says she calls the back team medical associates. And then she had a question,
That's
any
good.
advice on how to encourage people to be empowered?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the person, right? And there are going to be people who don't want to be empowered, that don't want to make the decision, that just want to not, you know, or don't want to like step up and take on extra work. And you can't really get mad at them, but the people that you promote and the people that you give raises to are the people who do want to be empowered. So the first thing is to sit down with them and talk about, hey, what are your goals? What would you like to do more? And kind of engage in their personality in that conversation and finding out like what do they like? If they really like talking to clients, that might be the person that you can have start to work with your difficult clients, right? If they don't necessarily like talking to clients, but they love, you know, teaching restraint or learning other things, that might be something that they can do. And it's sort of encouraging them to ask them what also just ask them directly, like what makes them happy when they're there? What would they like to do more of? What would they like to do? That doesn't mean that you can always give them what they want to do all day long, but that might be a place to start to figure out like what are the things that if you gave them a little bit more of this, or if you empowered them to do more of this specific thing, that it might engage them and help them be a little bit better. But be prepared for a few people that will not want to do more. And you have to accept them, right? Because they're just part of the hospital. But they may or may not get a raise in the future because they're just taking on, they'll get like the not a merit raise, but they're going to get the cost of living increase, right? Or the people that do more get the merit increase.
We're actually in the middle of that with our individual development plans.
Oh, I love that title.
Yeah, it's from VGP, but just, having everyone write down their personal SWOTs and what they are going to contribute to the team. And Yeah, so it kind
Yeah,
of makes them come up with the goals, and then we help them, give them the tools to make it happen.
exactly. That's great. Having them come up with the goals. And then sometimes you can come up with what you think and then sit down with them and say, hey, is this enticing to you? Because everybody has a different strength, like what they like to do is you have to ask them directly that question. Okay, so some tips I have is acknowledging good work. I talked about definitely not acknowledging in a negative way, but acknowledge good work too. It's important. If someone places a catheter on a freaking angry animal and you know they did a good job, tell them that was amazing. Good job. If you're walking by, tell them. We forget sometimes to share that, and people need to hear it sometimes. There are some people who need to hear it publicly. There's some people who'd rather hear it in private. You need to know that about that person. But telling people when they're doing a good job, whether there's like a bunch of phone calls in a row or a bunch of clients in a row, or whatever the situation was, make sure to see it. If you see it happen, acknowledge it. They know if you're BSing them though. So make sure it's a legitimate thing to compliment. But complimenting them encourages them to do better work, right? And welcome new feedback and ideas. Don't shut them down. I've already talked about that. And the biggest thing I think is that we tend to be the bottleneck. And sometimes it may not be the manager, it could be the practice owner or the medical director. There could be other pieces of that. It could be a technician lead or front office lead or whatever. Don't be the bottleneck and don't let another team member be the bottleneck. And figure out like if every decision has to go through one person, that's going to be a bottleneck. So figure out how to work around that. What decisions can be made by others? What can you teach us? And I talked about the SOPs. That's kind of the place to start. Write up those SOPs of how you want it to be handled. And then allowing people to be able to make decisions within their scope. You're not going to have a kennel assistant necessarily making a decision about the invoice, right? That may not be within their scope, but they could talk to someone that's on the front office team and they could make the decision for them. Show dedication in your own mistakes. If you make a mistake, be transparent with your team. You don't have to sit there and say all the time, oh my God, I made a mistake. I'm like a million times, but show them how you feel and you're handling something, because that transparency says a lot. If you never admit mistakes, they see it. Either they think you're a machine or they think that you're just not like truthful, to be honest. So be transparent within things that you're doing. That really helps them. Okay, my last thing, and I got this from Tony Robbins. So, can you empower your team? Well, the answer is yes, right? So, I want you to think about all the things that you keep having to deal with, and the problems that you have. And he says, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. And that's totally true. So, this is what I found. I have learned so much at conferences and advice people get. And I have said this myself. So, I say this being one of these people. That sounds like a great idea, but it won't work at my hospital because because. And you may have heard me say this because I've said this in many talks. The but because sometimes is the reason why progression doesn't happen, right? So, what if he changed it? What if he said, that sounds like a good idea, and if I try this, it could work? So the and if versus the but because. So think about it. And the second you start to say, but because, maybe try to change it to and if. All of you have already been on my webinar, so you don't need that information. Here's my resources. I will send them in a PowerPoint and the PDF version to all of you who have attended today. So you'll get a copy of that. You can click on the links to see more. And if there's any other questions, Dee, we're right at the end. So I went right to the 2 minutes to the hour. So if there's anything else, I'd love to talk about it.
Nikki had a comment again. She says, I have a couple who prefer to be spoon-fed. I definitely do the merit raise thing, but glad to know that it's a normal occurrence, not just my team. Laugh out loud.
Yes.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. And it's okay too, because I think a lot of us that didn't need that stuff, like I need a little bit of accolades, but I don't need it like constantly. Like I don't need constant like support every time I do make a decision of anything. I don't need someone to tell me I did a great job. But there are people who do. And we just have to balance out knowing who those people are and knowing the people that don't need it. But the people that don't need it daily still appreciate it on occasion. So make sure you think about that too. And then there's the people like my husband who want it in private or don't care because he just doesn't need this. He doesn't need the accolades like other people. So any other questions, Dean?
I'm just thinking though, sometimes we forget that there's people that are doing their job, doing exactly what is expected of them, but we're looking at people that are going above and beyond and patting those people on the back. But we really need to, if they're getting the job done, what we've hired them for, we should at least be thankful because there are
Absolutely.
some people that are just even not even doing the bare minimum. And that's where our frustrations and our energies go. So
Yeah, that's like the common thing in classrooms when we were kids. It's the disruptive kid that gets the most attention, right? So we tend to ignore the people that's a fair statement. We tend to ignore the people that are just doing their job every day. But we need to compliment them too and say, hey, thank you so much for, if they have like perfect attendance, tell them that. Like, hey, you've got great attendance. You really appreciate that.
Or sometimes they don't even see themselves being stretched,
No,
and to be asked to do something out of their scope helps them
absolutely.
grow, and it gives them that empowerment and the want to try something new and exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So that back to Nikki's question is like talking to them about what they want and how they can be empowered. And you could even say, like, I would like to give you don't say the word responsibility, though. I would like to empower you to make some decisions on your own. I would say it that way and say, what are the things that you find yourself getting bottlenecked? Have them tell you, because maybe they know stuff that you didn't know about. Leslie Boudreau has a great example in one of her talks. She talked about there's a bottleneck. They got new paper towel dispensers around the hospital, and apparently they required a key to change the paper towels, but there was only like one key in the whole building, and there's like 20 of these paper towel dispensers. And so no one told her for a long time. And then finally someone said, well, such a waste of time. It's so hard to change the towels because we only have one key. And Leslie was like, that's the bottleneck, just the key. So then now if you go to her hospital, she has a key on every single paper towel dispenser. They can unlock it and change the paper towels. So sometimes you have to ask those questions of the team too. What's the bottleneck?
This was great, Melissa.
All right.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you guys so much for attending today. I really appreciate it. It's a fun talk. My goal is to have everybody empowering their team because it helps the manager, it gives you less work. Well, I shouldn't say less work, but different work. You can focus in a different way, and it empowers them and wants them to stay with you longer. So really appreciate all of you today coming. And like I said, we'll send you the CE certificate and the PowerPoint slides, and I will upload I can't talk today, the video to my YouTube channel, and I'll send you guys all a copy of that if you want to show it to other members on your team or your practice owner as well. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll go ahead and stop my recording. Pause. There we go.